All right, so what we're going to talk about here real quick is developing rhythm and coordination in athletes. One of those things, especially when we start to look at building athletes from the ground up, whether they're a youth athlete, high school athlete, someone that's trying to get into the college sport realm or even play professionally, one of the things we have to look at as part of that trajectory is developing rhythm and coordination, right? And realistically, coordination builds into rhythm, right? And when we look at rhythm, basically we're trying to look at movement on a cadence, movement to a beat, movement that we can kind of sequence in a way that allows us to flow fluidly, right? So we're able to move around and have this almost dance-like and fluid motion, right? Rhythm, when we look at it, is really key for athletes because the more we can start to then time our movements, the more we're able to express forces, the more we're able to create these movements that are more efficient and essentially take less effort on the field, right? We like to use the model of skipping, right? So if I skip, right, we're in place and we skip, this is a very rhythmic movement, right? You see people dance all the time, you get little jigs, whole 9 yards. What we're looking at when we look at rhythm is we're trying to develop some sense of moving to a beat, all right? If I sit there and kind of take it to music, right, and we'll do this little in-place skip over here, right? We're bouncing, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, just like a beat or a cadence in music, right? Especially if you look at athletes, right? They can do this backwards, right? They can do it side to side. I'll show you the side to side. We'll be able to move side to side with this, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. When we look at athleticism, we're trying to develop that ability, right? That's actually a key physical literacy skill. It's one of those things that, they do dance lessons in PE and phys ed, and they get everybody in these big circles, and they do line dancing and square dancing. Realistically, what we're looking at is trying to develop some sort of rhythm. When we look at that and applying that on the field, on the court, on the mat, wherever it is, what we're trying to do is build some sequencing and being able to layer in skills and being able to time movements in relation to another, right? If my hand has got to move in cadence with my other foot, being able to sequence these things becomes very vital when we look at playing a sport on the field. I know I'm a little out of breath, moving around as a big guy. But when we start to look at that, right, watch your favorite athletes. Watch guys come out of the tunnel on an NFL Sunday. You'll see them. They skip, they bounce, they jog, they sprint out on the field. Watch a sprinter. It's like poetry in motion. What we're seeing is rhythm. And that rhythm, especially when we look at it at a very young age, is going to be developed in a couple key ways. One, actually exposing them to beats and trying to get them to move on a beat, okay? Sometimes this is dancing, all right? Dance parties, especially if you work with kids that are, younger level, we're looking at like 5 to 10 years old. Dance parties, great thing, right? Have a dance party as a warm-up. Those are things that we can easily apply in order to develop some sense of rhythm. Actually doing, legitimate phys ed that's designed to build physical literacy, that is a key component, right? Finding ways to get them to skip. One of the favorite warm-ups I used to do when I was working more in like a structured speed and agility class style environment was we would do a warm-up that basically was no instruction and just open to interpretation. Here's what I want you to do. We would literally line up a bunch of 10-year-olds and we'd have a 15-yard span, line them up at a cone and say, great, I just want you to skip. Whatever it means to you, just skip. And you get a bunch of different variations that kids would show you, all right? It might be skip sideways, skip backwards, skip loud, all right? Skip quiet, skip high, skip low. Sometimes even going as far as skip with a dance move in it, right? What we're trying to do and develop this sense of rhythm and coordination is being able to identify what your body's doing in time and space, being able to take that identification of what your body's doing in time and space, sequence it in a way that is meaningful and matters in terms of applying forces and solving physical problems. When we look at rhythm and coordination, the more rhythm and coordination we have, the more likely we're going to be able to solve physical problems. And especially if you're an athlete, regardless of the sport you're in, solving physical problems is part of the game. All right? You've got to be able to find the ball in an open space. You've got to be able to move the ball in a closed space. You've got to be able to maneuver around an opponent. You've got to be able to tackle an opponent or tag an opponent. If you're a wrestler, you're taking down an opponent. All right? When we look at starting to understand how sports and athletics works, athleticism at a root, you need to be able to have that sense of rhythm to be able to move your body in a way that's meaningful and can be used in a way on a field to create scoring opportunities, prevent scoring from happening, and ultimately, maneuver your body in a way that's going to lead to individual or team success. So when we look at rhythm and coordination, it's highly important for athletes, and it's one of those things we can develop in the weight room or in training, whether we're doing some kind of field like speed and agility work, whether we're kind of doing some in-place skipping movements, or just general. We can even go as far as crawling movements and trying to coordinate crawling, develop stability. Those are all things that we can do in a training setting that are going to enhance athleticism.